Hi, you're watching Bread and Roses, a weekly political social television magazine on New Channel TV. I'm Mariam Namazi and I'm presenting this week's program with my wonderful co-host, Fariborz Puya.
Hello from me.
We're sorry that we haven't had our programs for a few weeks now, but our director, Reza Moradi, has been busy editing all the footage from the 11th to 12th October conference on the religious right, secularism and civil rights. The footage is fantastic and you should really go and have a look at those clips if you haven't been able to come to the conference. You can see the link to the conference website on the screen, at the bottom of the screen. In this week's program, we'll be discussing the issue of blasphemy and whether it's something that is a cause of offense and we should frown upon it, or whether blasphemy is something that should actually be celebrated. We have a really interesting interview with Ina Shevchenko. She is the head of Famine, which is the topless activist organization, and she'll be discussing her take on blasphemy. We caught up with her at the October conference in London. We'll also, of course, as usual, have the shocking news as well as the insane fatwa of the week. So I hope you enjoy this week's program. Before we begin though, let's go to a short clip that gives a background on the issue of blasphemy. Stay with us. Over 20 countries in the Middle East, North Africa and Asia have blasphemy laws, including 8 European countries, and many more have laws against the defamation of religion. Whilst the religious right continue to strive to strengthen blasphemy laws, there are many worldwide calling for an end to such laws as being outdated and a contravention of people's rights. I mean, it's interesting when we talk about the issue of blasphemy that we're often told that we shouldn't blaspheme because it is offensive to believers. And in a sense, you know, a lot of things offend each and every one of us, including people who are not religious. But it seems that it's only religion that is deemed to be sacred and off limits and, in a sense, a no-go area for criticism. And I think, in a sense, that's why it makes it even more important to be able to blaspheme and to be able to criticize religion. I mean, I know historically we've seen blasphemy laws, and even today, of course, given the extent of blasphemy laws throughout the world, that it is a form of control and it's a form of religion's religion uses it as a way of maintaining control and, stopping dissent. There's that Egyptian Islamist Qaradawi who has come out and said point blank that if there wasn't blasphemy and apostasy laws in Islam, there would be no more Islam or religion left, in a sense.
Imagine for a second you have a dictatorship which is made up of certain laws and regulation. And those laws and regulation become sacred, so nobody can question them. That's what blasphemy law is, to protect control system that exists, which is refined in religious laws and religious edicts, and to protect those and question those mostly dictatorial and regressive laws. They've covered it with sacredness and said, look, nobody's allowed to question these. And that's what the role of blasphemy law is, to protect the special interests, to prevent people questioning the normal condition of life and protect special interests. That's what it is. And actually it's crucial for any improvement in people's life in any part of the world. I think it's crucial to be able to blaspheme and question, because blasphemy is questioning. Blasphemy is being critical, and I think it's so important to remove any blasphemy law that exists and question the rules and regulation and restrictions, and that's a precondition for any change and improvement in people's lives.
In a sense, when we hear about blasphemy, we're often, it's usually, we're told, even in countries where blasphemy isn't a law, like in the UK where it's been taken off the books quite recently, we're told, well, it's better not to offend, try not to do it if you can help it. And the reality is that most people don't speak their mind in order to offend other people, but there is this sort of offense industry, as it's called, where especially the religious, and particularly the religious right, are offended by everything. And in a sense, what happens is many things that are part of daily life become an act of blasphemy for them in and of itself. It's not just a cartoon. It is a woman who's not properly veiled. It is even believers sometimes that question or criticize certain religious rules. Like just recently, a Somali author has written a book, he lives in Kenya, where he's questioned Islam's apostasy rules and whether people should be killed for it. And he's received fatwas for it, and he's not even an atheist really. And there's so many examples like this.
Yeah, and so I think blasphemy functions at two levels, blasphemy law. One, it's a formal level, that legal restrictions, and the other part of it is cultural law, and sort of putting pressure on people. The fact that in Europe, even in countries where there is no blasphemy law, there is a lot of social pressure by the religious groups, the media, soft sort of pressure put on people to prevent them from questioning exists. And I really think that a precondition for any change, for improvement of a lot of humanity anywhere, the precondition is actually to remove blasphemy law and make blasphemy as part of critical thinking, and that's so essential.
Yeah, I mean, especially going back to this issue of offense, what's interesting is that all of us are offended at certain things, at any given time. A lot of religious edicts could be offensive to many of us. They are, for example, but it's only religious notions that are deemed to be blasphemous, criticizing them are deemed to be blasphemous and sacred. So you're able to criticize all other ideas to a large extent. It's what is sacred that is a no-go area, and in a sense that's why it makes it even more important to be able to have that space to be blasphemous, really.
Absolutely. But this sort of issue of blasphemy sometimes goes beyond religion. Nationalism, for example, functions on occasion that does not allow people to question, the great national heroes. There are, in non-religious sort of form, nationalism actually functions at that level occasionally, but religion has turned it into a fine art. I think that's what it is.
I wonder what you think about it. I mean, I think this goes beyond an issue of free expression and freedom of thought. It goes to the crux of, having a state in which religion has power in order to impose blasphemy laws, and why it's so important to not have religious states and theocracies, particularly given the impact that it has on people's lives. Let's go now and listen to an interview we did recently with Shevchenko, the head of Famine. She thinks that blasphemy is something to be celebrated. Watch this. Hello, Shevchenko. It's wonderful to have you on our program. I wanted to talk to you about the discussion that you raised at the conference we had on secularism. You talked about the need for girls against gods. Explain that a bit.
Well, usually when you say word blasphemy, such a word you don't have to count immediately to have understanding from people. And it's not only about believers, but also very often secular people don't want to accept such a word and don't want to accept the need of blasphemy. Even today, there was a point of view explained at the conference that we don't have to use this word. Well, I'm enjoying using this word because for me, blasphemy is a celebration of freedom of speech. For me, blasphemy is also one of the tools how we can go forward and reach our main goal is pure secular society. Because blasphemy is basically the critic or questioning the religion. And I think that, what I pointed also at the conference, that usually we imagine when we say blasphemy, we imagine such a radical acts like, for example, Famine often does. We love to do that, right? But it's not only about that. It's not only about such radical acts, because very often religious institutions can see as blasphemy public kiss of gay couple in the street, or they can also call blasphemy when Muslim women are unveiled and prefer not to cover themselves. there are plenty of things that can be seen as a blasphemy by religious institutions. And the main point of mine is that blasphemy is our term, is a term of secularists, and we have to take responsibility to interpret it. We have to make clear and to give our meaning to this term. Blasphemy is a celebration of freedom of speech, point, and nothing else. And I do believe that blasphemy that is committed by women is it's a very important and dangerous weapon against oppressive religious institutions.
Yeah, I mean, you did mention how actually women committing blasphemy is so important. Why is that? Explain that more.
Well, I think that when we talk about religion and, let's say, nearly all oppressive ideas, the first victim always would be woman, always. Especially when we talk about religion, it's clear in all holy books, it's well explained how you have to behave towards women, how you have to oppress them, basically. The 4th chapter of Quran is clearly telling you how you should do that. Bible, Torah, they all spend a lot of time explaining you how you have to treat women. So especially when woman is coming out and breaking stereotypes and breaking rules, religious rules, and expressing her entire religious or secular point of view, this is something that is eating and destroying religious institutions from inside. The main victim of them is coming out and starting to fight.
I mean, you talked about one of your acts of blasphemy, which was sawing down a cross. Explain why you thought you needed to do that, and what do you say to people who say you shouldn't offend believers?
About the cross, that's definitely, I think that's one of the examples of protest when we realized how powerful are religious institutions and how powerful is a church in Eastern European countries. For example, during that action, we picked up that cross because we definitely knew that we can't be charged by law after this action. Why? Because this cross officially doesn't exist. It's nothing. It doesn't. It's not supposed to be there. It was initiative of some activists who just decided to put it in right on Independence Square in the center of European capital, Kiev. And we knew that this cross is not supposed to be there. So we took responsibility on ourselves and came with a chainsaw. I learned overnight how to use a chainsaw to destroy this religious symbol. I do believe that this action has many levels of special meanings when woman is destroying religious symbol that is basically showing this huge historical clash between religion and women's rights, when woman is using man's machine and is able to do something that usually we think that it's only men who are supposed to do such a things. This action for me is important on many levels, but the reaction on the action was not only that, of course, we were condemned by religious community, of course, we've been criticized by religious institutions, but we also understood how powerful is our religious institutions within our country. Because just 2 hours after we did that action, there was the main Russian TV channel reported that Famine activists destroyed a memorial for victims of Stalinism. That is, of course, a lie. There is a real memorial for victims of Stalinism that is also located on Independence Square, but it's out of stone and nobody never touched it. So I faced on myself, I understood how powerful is a church within the state and what they can do together. They can use tools of each other to shut down everyone who is criticizing religion. And this is why I believe that the problem of us is not that church or religious institutions in general are so powerful. The problem is that such acts are single. If we would chop down all illegal crosses, they would not be able to charge all of us. they would not be able to force all of us to live in exile as I do right now after this action.
And about the whole issue of offense, I mean, the thing is that people will say, well, you need to respect people's beliefs. The cross is sacred for some. How would you respond to something like that?
That's a common critic, that this act is violent because people are hurt. This act is offending feelings of religious people. Well, first of all, as a woman, my feelings were hurt every day when I was passing through that cross. Every day on the main square, Independence Square, in Kiev, I had to look at that cross. I was offended, nobody cared, right? I feel really offended, and my feelings are really hurt when religious institutions are saying that women can't abort. I feel really hurt when they say that gay people are not existing in our part of the world. So what? I'm accepting, I'm listening to what they say, but let me respond. What the acts of blasphemy are not, it's not violence, is not, we don't mean to hurt and offend on purpose. What we mean to is to respond. If it's hurting you, well, rethink your ideas. Because what we are doing at the end, we're doing it in the name of freedom, in the name of equality. Otherwise, it's only one part of society is able to speak, and the other one always have to shut up. No, I'm not accepting that. We have to scream out. We have to be visible. And I do believe that secularism is something that not any country reached yet. Even if right now I'm based in a state that is supposed to be secular, France, and it's not at all. The law is applied selectively. When it's coming to direct critique of religious institutions, be sure you will get a response from the state, from the courts. You will be charged, and you will have to be responsible for this act. But I do believe that secularism is something when both believers and non-believers are. When we all will learn to laugh at our ideologies, at our opinions, at the way we see the world, when we all will learn to question our ideas that we carry in our hands, when we all will learn to have discussion and debates about it. And right now, we don't have that. And if sometimes maybe people, very often they ask me, but why do you need to do that, especially in Europe?
And why not, though?
Well, the thing is that very often people are just, I'm getting really angry when I see how in European countries people live with an illusion that everything is fine, that we got all the rights and we are totally free and we can do whatever. No, you can't do. You think so, but that's an illusion. The thing is that all oppressive institutions and oppressive ideology by itself is working every day how to take your rights back. So our part is that we have to work every day how to resist. As they want to oppress us, we have to resist to that oppression non-stop, every day. And Europe became, it's kind of a dogma. You're not questioning it. You're not thinking about it. And this is wrong.
One last question is about Famine, which is the greatest act of blasphemy, really. Tell me about that.
Well, I think the organization by itself is a blasphemy. First of all, we are feminists, and that's kind of act of blasphemy. Second, we are using our body as a tool for liberation. We are undressing, we are screaming out, we are showing ourselves, exposing ourselves for our idea, with our idea, carrying our demands, political demands and slogans on our body. We use our body not as something that can serve man and please man. We are not using our body that should, we are not hiding our body from someone. We're exposing it, using it as our own, right now, political tool. And famine by itself is a blasphemy because brave, free, rebelling woman, it's an act of blasphemy.
Thank you very much. hope you enjoyed that wonderful interview with Ina Shevchenko. I mean, I really agree with her. I think that blasphemy should be celebrated. Blasphemy becomes irrelevant when people are no longer killed or threatened for it. And therefore, it's, you know, it is something to celebrate and to push for an end of such laws. And I also very much agree with Ina that girls especially, women especially, have to be blasphemous. In a sense, our very existence, our bodies, our free thought, our free living freely, thinking freely, loving freely, are all really acts of blasphemy. And I think blasphemy is really one of the wonderful ways of challenging religion and the religious right.
And this is a sense of science and progress, I think, is critical thinking and being critical, and every society, any community, any group of people need that like air to be able to live and progress. So blasphemy is essential, and I think I agree with you, and you know that this is so critical for any movement. And we've seen in any country, any part of history, people have actually, by questioning the edicts, and mostly religious edicts, they've been able to progress and move forward. And that's, you know, there's a history of blasphemy shows that where the blasphemy law has been weakened, people have been allowed to question and be critical of the condition of life, and given sort of situation, they've succeeded. And that's so essential, and we can't, it's so precious, and we can't give it up, and we won't give it up.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we really need to be critical of those who are so concerned about being causing offense and being offended. You know, fine, we're all offended, that's part of life, but the point is that opposing or criticizing an idea is not the same as, arresting and fining and imprisoning and killing people who are blasphemous. There's no correlation between the two.
And I think I really have a simple advice for the religious, is learn to respect people's right to question. I think that's very simple, then there won't be any need for blasphemy law.
Yeah, I mean, and the reality is that for a lot of religious people as well, blasphemy laws can be quite dangerous, because when you look at people who are being sentenced to blasphemy laws, some of them are religious
Mostly
as well.
are actually.
Yeah.
Most of people who are religious and they start questioning, they are the ones who are the first victims of blasphemy law, because they need to keep the flock together. And I think, the first victims, the same way that the first victims of religious government are people within, under the rule, in the same way, people within certain religious who are transgressing and trying to move beyond that religion and question it, they are the first victims. So I think removing blasphemy law and the right to criticism, it protects even the religious.
And I think, let's not forget the victims of these sort of laws. Just recently in Pakistan, a Christian couple, a young couple, the woman was 4 months pregnant. They were attacked by a mob, burnt alive in the kiln that they worked, merely because they were said to have blasphemed against the Quran and Islam. You have a Turkish woman recently being arrested because she tweeted a photo of her high heels on the Quran. The arrests and the murders in the name of blasphemy laws are what should be offensive, and not people criticizing religions and beliefs. Do tell us what you think about this, but let's now go to the shocking news of the week. Stay with us. In shocking news of this week, it's the case of a 12-year-old girl, Mahna Samandari. She is of Baha'i parents. She died recently in October due to a rare illness. And since October, her parents have not been able to bury the child because the authorities say that they don't want her buried alongside Muslims, and she's been in the morgue since then. And the parents have gone to lawyers to try to get help, and even lawyers have refused to take up the case because they've said it's got security implications. I mean, it's, the thought that parents have lost their precious child and can't even bury the child because they are Baha'is. It's outrageous.
And I think that's he's always had that in various religions, and Islam now it's advanced it to its ultimate form. This is religion of peace. This is religion of love, and religion always people say, oh, Jesus and Muhammad, they love each other. This is the reality, is that the essence of it is very brutal and very exclusive. The fact the child can't be buried because of parents' religious belief is outrageous, and I think the world cannot be silenced about this. And this is just unacceptable, and it needs to be challenged head on. Anywhere that any Islamist or any supporter of the Islamic regime wants to speak, they need to be accountable for this, and anybody who supports that regime needs to be accountable for this despicable act.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should all highlight this case. Mahna her family lives in Tabriz. They've been trying to put pressure on the authorities to allow for her burial. There seems to be several other Baha'is who haven't been allowed to be buried in Tabriz. So we need to keep the pressure on and make sure that they are able to bury their loved one. I mean, there's really no words to explain how outrageous and shocking this news is. Let's now go to our usual insane fatwa of the week. Okay, well, insane fatwa of the week, there are so many, but this one is hilarious. You've got the Islamic Assembly in Iran. They are discussing a bill to fine or imprison, or not imprison, sorry, give 74 lashes to anyone who publicly walks their dog. And this is what the actual bill says. It says, walking and playing with animals such as dogs and monkeys. I don't know where the monkeys came in.
Don't look at me.
Outdoors and in public places are harmful to the health and peace of other people, especially kids and women, and are against our Islamic culture. I mean, it's just, it's sad and funny at the same time, honestly.
The issue, I think, here is that last time I checked, there was Ayatollah walking a monkey in the streets of Tehran. And I think that's what it is. I think this is, there is a cultural war going on, and they are trying to stop it. And there's so many features of this cultural war that young people actually do things. There is huge movement of protecting animals in Iran, which has started in the last decade or so, protecting animals, cruelty against animals, and part of that reflects itself people having a lot more sort of pets
yeah.
and looking after them, yeah, and expressing love for animals in this way. And this is unacceptable to an Islamic regime in Iran. And that's really what it is. But I have no idea where the monkeys come in.
I mean, if anything is harmful to the health and peace of people, especially kids and children, it's actually Islamic culture, yes, not having pets and caring for them and caring for other living animals and treating them with decency, as happens in many places in the world and happens in Iran as well. And obviously the Islamic regime has a problem with that, as they do with anything that is,
Don't forget the monkey.
And the monkeys, yeah. So anyway, we've reached the end of our program. I hope you enjoyed the discussions. We'd love to hear what you think about it. Until next week, do get in touch with us. We hope you have a lovely week, and we'll see you then. Bye.